Hi, I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching accesstv.org.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this important meeting about Weaver High School. I want to first say welcome to the Board of Ed, elected officials, the mayor, and program providers around the city of Hartford for the education of our children. We're going to try to get straight and right to the point. I'm going to turn the mic over to Janice Flemings now, and she's going to begin with the questions with the superintendent.
Good evening. You all have in front of you the agenda, which lays out the purpose of the meeting this evening. Just let me give you a little framework on why we're all here. As many of you may or may not know, Blue Hill Civic Association, African American Alliance, the Voices of Women of Color, and the Greater Hartford NAACP had created the North Hartford Education Task Force, in which we were asking ourselves questions about the future of Weaver. We wanted to continue that conversation because we were receiving a bunch of calls in the past few weeks from parents, stakeholders alike in the Blue Hills community in regards to some information that they had received either at a Board of Education meeting or via communication through the media, social media. So we don't believe in wasting time. We want to get straight to it. Superintendent Kishimoto has informed me that she has to leave by 7, is that correct? Yes. And so without further ado, I'll get right to the questions. These questions were sent to us and also thought out by our education committee. And so the first group of questions will be for the superintendent. The second group of questions will be for Senator Coleman on bonding. He'll be running late, he's at the state capitol. And then we have a question for State Treasurer Adam Cloud.
Not yet,
City Treasurer, sorry, babe. You know, I went from that state senator thing and then over to you. Okay, number 1. This question is for Kishimoto. You have communicated to the Board of Education and the School Choice Facilities Committee that you intend to close Weaver at either the end of this school year or at the end of next school year. Please explain your thought process behind the decision.
Thanks for jumping right into that point. By the way, thank you for the turnout. It's great to have everyone in the community come out and be part of the continued dialogues around Weaver High School and the work we have already started and are continuing. We started this work over 2 years ago with a series of community forums, and we had the involvement of several organizations, including the Blue Hills Civic Association, and many parents in the community talking about what we want to see at Weaver High School. You're going to be getting a handout in a few minutes that gives you just an overview of where we are. We're jumping right to the question, what is presented in the media, and I'm glad that we have actually the reporter here who actually wrote the article, doesn't necessarily always tell the full story and make the connections with what has already happened. And so we have not changed course in any way. I want to be very clear about that. There was a decision that came from the community to design Weaver High School using 3 academies. Based on that partnership discussion and the suggestions that came from the community, we put forth, and actually I put forth to the state an application with the support of the Board of Education and the City Council for $100 million construction grants to renovate Weaver as new. And we're not at the design phase of that building yet, but the construction grant has been submitted to the state. That is at the state legislature right now, and I encourage everyone to contact your legislators to encourage them to approve this this grant. That really is the work that we need to be doing right now in terms of getting the word out. What happened recently at a school choices facilities committee meeting, and what will continue to happen, is that I have to keep my board informed of the kind of dialogues and decisions that we need to consider as we move through every step of the way. So as those conversations happen, it's important for me to let the board know what we are considering at each step of the way. And that's what was reported. The fact that I was having a conversation with the board about the need to either close the Weaver this year as a building or next year. Either way, at the end of the year 2014, in order to go into construction, the building needs to be shut down. It'll be a construction zone. The question was whether the Culinary Arts Academy that is in that building right now, whether it made more sense programmatically for the students there to close it this year and move them in a partnership we have with Lincoln Tech to the state-of-the-art kitchens that they have over there so that we can continue that development of that program of studies, or whether we should wait a full year and close it when we're absolutely required to close it for construction, which is next year. So what you heard in the media was that dialogue about when it's best to do that. We have been in the middle of looking at the pros and cons of both. We are at the point where we're very close to really looking at staying at Weaver one more year because of the cost implications of moving a year in advance. But no matter what, the building needs to be closed by next year. Otherwise, we would delay construction of that building. And I know the community is very anxious to have that facility built as a school, as a new school for the current students and all of the future students. And so what you have before you in a kind of as concise as possible is a summary of what I have shared as well as the timeline. And I'll stop there because there may be other questions that we'll get to the details.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you. Around the same time that the closure of Weaver was reported, it was also reported that the Journalism and Media Academy would be transitioned to a chef magnet school. Will you provide neighborhood preference to the students in North Hartford, and exactly what will the percentage of Hartford students be?
So for all magnet schools, the percentage of seats that are dedicated to Hartford resident students is usually a 50-50 split. When we looked at that split for the Journalism and Media Academy, it would allow us to ensure that everyone who applied to journalism and media as a first choice through the choice application process would in fact be guaranteed a seat at the Journalism and Media Academy, even with the conversion to magnet. What it allows us to do is open up with a strong enrollment as a new construction project. And many of you, I'm sure, have seen that beautiful building that has been renovated as new on Tower Avenue. The 50%, the neighborhood preference was the other part of that question. The neighborhood preference will still be a mile around the building, so the purpose for dedicating this construction project and advancing this construction project on Tower Avenue was to ensure that we have a high school option for students who live in the northeast portion of the city, because there is no high school necessarily in the northeast portion of the city. And we wanted the school, and we want the school to be a complement to the academies that are offered at Weaver. And so there'll still be a 1 mile preference for students who live and can walk to the school. The next level of preference is everyone who's in that quadrant of the city who may need transportation, but still are within that greater neighborhood of the JMA Academy.
And Evelyn, where's Evelyn? Our outreach specialist is here. If you're thinking of questions that you may be asking yourself as the superintendent is responding, she has index cards, and you can raise your hand and she'll go around and make sure you get one.
we'll post all the Q&As on the website. So
Yes, and we'll have that too. Okay. Number 3, the closure of Weaver includes a plan to relocate the Culinary Academy to the Lincoln Culinary Institution. Will transportation be provided to all existing culinary students, and was the additional funding for that transportation included in your proposed budget?
Yes, transportation is provided to students who enroll in the academy, and yes, the transportation, the budget proposed for next year includes the transportation budget for these students.
Now, this is the question I feel passionately about. I usually start smiling when I feel passionate about something. And I think I feel passionate because as the program developer for Weaver High School, and Lee Hunt's here tonight, he kind of humbly goes about his way and forget to tell people about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that he has brought to the Weaver Track athletic program over the many years. And let us not forget the money that Doc Hurley, who still attends this center that we're in today, has brought so graciously to Weaver. And as I look in the room, I see a bunch of Weaver athletes. And so this question, what will happen with the renowned athletic programs that have enabled several Weaver High School students to attend college on full scholarships?
So I'm going to answer that from a couple of points, because the question has been asked in several ways in the forums that we've been having throughout the city, answering similar questions. First of all, in the year-long discussion we had, and I'm glad you point out Mr. Hunt, because he was so instrumental in making sure we had the input of the community into this design. One of the things that came forth, among many other things, is that we want to make sure that we continue to have a strong athletic program as part of the Weaver High School design. And so the discussion was, and the design ultimately is, that while there are unique academies that provide students career-based opportunities, such as hospitality and culinary, the engineering, the Architecture Design Academy, as well as the Liberal Arts Academy, that while that provides unique curriculum opportunities based on student interests, that collectively there would continue to be one athletics program. And by having those academies work together under the athletics program, under a rich arts program, music program in the building, you have the necessary enrollment to be able to sustain those programs. The other piece of this is that I'm very interested in, and I've talked about, is my interest in transitioning the athletic facility, which includes the track, the basketball courts, the pool, and then all the external fields, to a community athletic field space and center, so that while we want to make sure students have it available for athletic programs, we also want to make sure that we can expand upon that and have the residents of the community have access to these great resources, so it becomes part of an important resource for the residents around Weaver High School. The other piece is, in terms of scholarships, is that we also have rolled out the Hartford Promise Scholarship Program that expands upon the opportunity for students to have up to $5,000 scholarship each year for a 4-year college as a graduate of a school in Hartford, and it's targeted towards students who are residents of the city of Hartford. Once again, ensuring that we leverage resources from our corporate partners to help our students, help all of our students be able to finance college. And so there's the athletics piece, but there are students who are going to attend college who are not necessarily part of athletics programs, so this is a nice complement to that.
I just want to spend a little more time on that because we just seen the wonderful girls at Capitol Prep win the state championship. And while I was thinking about these questions in terms of athletics, what I realized is that the young people who are at the magnet schools get to benefit from athletic programs of public schools, meaning they get to play together, but there's some breakdown when it's time for them to apply for college, because we realize that in order to have a well-rounded student, that student has the athletic, the academic, and other extracurricular, arts and everything. And Weaver has produced some of the best athletes. We have women who are not going to be able to come back to this city because of hiring issues and employment. However, they went to Dartmouth, they went to BC, they went to Berkeley. These are Weaver graduates, and they went via athletics, but been able to sustain themselves academically to complete their undergrad. So it's going to be very critical that, and I like the idea of expanding the athletic department. I know Lee Hunt, and my years of being there, have traveled all over nationally, have seen different stadiums, athletic stadiums that go beyond the schools and train all year round. So I would really hope that you all work closely with Lee on some of that stuff. Number 5, this one's very important given what I used to see at Weaver. School-based health centers have been on the decline in Hartford. When Court Middle closed, so did the SBHC. What are your plans to see that these young people in the community will have access to the health services they need?
Actually, school-based health centers and dental clinics are extremely important to us. We opened up 2 new dental clinics this year in the city of Hartford. So each year we will continue to look at how we can expand these services. We continue to look at what the facility allows for in terms of access. There are certain requirements in terms of accessing the building, but we continue to look at opportunities to increase those. And this year we continued that work by expanding with 2 dental clinics. I'm trying to remember if we have another health clinic. I don't think we've had another health clinic, but we have 2 dental clinics we added this year.
But specifically, during this transition, have we considered a plan to put in place for the kids, like specifically for Weaver? Like, do we have something?
We have continued, there is an increased shift of students. There's been a decrease of residents of a certain age in the greater Weaver area. And so we continue to look at where the demand is, but we will continue to look at how to provide access in each part of the city. And so that's something that we will continue to make sure is available.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. We're going to skip over the state legislator questions. Well, we have some school building people here, right? Yeah. 3 of us. Let's see. Raise Bill 876, an act concerning authorization of state grant committees for school building projects and a study of roof pitch requirements on school buildings, authorizes the state to enter into grant commitments, including $80 million. How will those funds be used, and have any previous funds allotted to Weaver have been used for other schools? Which one do you want?
Thank you, Janice. Actually, I'm a member of the school building committee. Okay, all right. I'm a member of the school building committee, and I am aware that we have extended a lot of money from the city of Hartford and have not got reimbursed yet. I know that I believe $33 million of the Weaver money that was slated for Weaver was used for another school that had to participate in the chef process. So it was committed that that money would be replaced into the capital improvement plan before any construction of Weaver takes place. And we on the school building committee, those of us who went to Weaver, who care about Weaver, have been really on the case about making sure that $33 million goes back to Weaver, which it will, before it is not going to interfere with any of the construction of that school. That school will go on schedule as it is, and the money will be replaced back to it. It's just that it was in the capital improvement plan, but it had not been used because no construction had taken place.
Yeah, in the capital improvement budget that I've submitted to council, the $33 million that was taken out last year, I believe it was last year, is being replaced so that it will bring the total appropriations up to the complete $100 million that we initially approved.
I want to tag on to that. So what happens with CIP or capital improvement budget is the mayor creates the budget, the council approves it, and then I bond for it. But bond for it means that we borrow money to pay back through the capital markets or the stock market. We borrow money for that. Now, when that did happen, I was concerned about the 30 million, but that explanation is absolutely accurate. No money, although the money got shifted, I think it was Kinsella. It went to Kinsella, and it went to Kinsella because Kinsella, through the state chef segregation case, is willing to do the ECS payment or educational cost sharing. They're going to reimburse the city at a 97% reimbursement rate compared to a rate lower than that. And more importantly, the timing relative to when Kinsella could be built was faster than the construction period scheduled for Weaver, so it made sense to expend those dollars now, get Kinsella done, and as Weaver is getting ready for construction, the next time we bond for the construction of Weaver, that money will be ready and the timing will be appropriate for that financing.
I want to go ahead and add one more piece to that, which is what we have before, once we get the approval from the state legislature for the dollars, and we go into the design phase, the design will be for a construction project of the scale of $100 million. And then, as Mr. Cloud explained, there's a timing for when those dollars are bonded for on the city side.
With another example of a SBHC closing and none being built to replace it, what are you doing to make it easier for adolescents to access health care? State law regarding youth being able to access SBHC at other schools has not always worked well for community members. So I guess they want to know, although you have it, there has been problems with access with some of the transitions. So this is why I guess I was leaning forward on that question about, do we have a plan in place where we can say, okay, if you're transitioning, you go to this health center. You know, this question was a reoccurring question. You may want to spend a little more time on that.
Good evening, everyone. When we have transition planning with schools such as culinary arts and also with journalism and media, obviously we're going to make appropriate planning to make sure that access to health needs and as such are still done. We can coordinate those efforts with all our community agencies like we have done in the past with similar situations, and we will continue to work fervently with community agencies to make sure that no student who attends Weaver or who will be attending Weaver for the 2013-14 school year will be without any type of services. And by the way, my name is Kevin McCaskill. I'm the Director of School Design and Programming for the Hartford Public Schools. Thank you, Mr. Cloud. Treasurer Cloud.
I didn't know someone else wanted to add.
Thank you. Treasurer Cloud. Well, I think you did that. The question was, please explain the bonding process as it relates to school building construction. Is everyone satisfied with what he had to say earlier? I think he kind of talked about that. Everybody? Zalmo? You want to explain it? Okay, hold on.
Watch out, y'all. I like to talk, so be Careful. What you asked for. So the superintendent made a very good point, and I think I wanted to refine it. So when the General Assembly authorizes bonding, that's money that is the $100 million that eventually will cover the expense for the construction. But what the city of Hartford has to do is we have to create a offering document of which we borrow money from investors, and that money comes in and we pay those investors back over a period of 20 years for loaning us the money. They receive their principal back plus interest on their money for investing in projects that the city of Hartford builds, such as our roads and our schools. We bond every year. We used to bond around $70 million per year. Now we've scaled it back to be more conservative, to be in concert with the mayor, myself, and council decided that we will not be spending more than $50 million a year for new projects. And the reason why is every time we bond money or borrow money from other people, we have to pay it back. And the more we have to pay back, the more we are not going to be able to use for our operations, including public safety, including education, including the overall health of the city. So one of the things that we want to be is more conservative in how much we borrow. Now, to date, since the inception of borrowing in the city of Hartford, we have about $323 million of debt outstanding. What we have recently done, and I closed that transaction last week, was I went and restructured that debt so that it would not cost us as much to pay it back over the 20 years. And that's a much more complicated process, which I'm glad to discuss. But it ended up saving us, instead of paying in 13-14's budget $40 million of money to people that we owe that money to, we reduced that number to $23 million. That $17.5 million of savings is dollars that's going to help the mayor offset the $70 million deficit that we're facing. That was a strategic move on our part. It helps in 13-14, but it also was structured to help for the next 4 years, including 13-14. So for the next 5 years, we're going to generate around $56 million in savings in our borrowing costs. It's like when you go to your mortgage holder and you refinance your mortgage. If you were paying 5% and you can borrow at 3.5%, that 1.5% savings is money in your pocket. And that's what I recently did to help save the city some money so that we wouldn't pay as much out. And it's hopefully going to provide the flexibility to, one, ensure that those that rate our government, meaning those who think about the credit quality of Hartford, will continue to think that our credit quality is strong because of strong fiscal management, as seen in this example, and that it will afford the council and the mayor the opportunity to not have to increase the tax burden on the citizens, because that $17.5 million offsets what will be owed as in the deficit. I hope that's a little more clear.
I'm glad State Representative Doug McCrory, who's been busy at the state capitol working, is here, because I'm really interested in hearing from the state side where we are in getting our money back. I guess it's that simple, right? How much was it, Mayor? What 23 mil, what? You know, that's too many zeros for me to...
This year.
Okay. All right, so we're going to ask him where we are with those dollars.
Thank you, and I apologize for coming late. I was at a prior meeting. Are we talking about Weaver High School or are we talking about JMA?
That we're talking about
If you want to break it down, do we, however you want to approach it, let's see where that money at. Tomato, tomato.
Well, I'll speak from the state perspective. I believe the mayor can speak from the city perspective.
Last year, when we were preparing for the budget, and even the year before, we became aware that there was a large amount of money that was owed by the state to reimburse us for the money that we had spent building schools. So when we drafted this year's budget, meaning going back a year, we thought that we could at least get $11 million of those reimbursements back to the city so that we can close the deficit and again not have to increase taxes. We did that and we started submitting invoices to the state. There has been some setbacks. Initially, the person who was responsible for processing those payments, those reimbursements, retired, so it took a little bit of time for the new person to come on board. But thus far, the state has provided to us a schedule by which we can expect to receive payment and the approximate amount of those reimbursements. So by the end of this fiscal year, I trust that we would get an amount in the neighborhood of about $8 million, I believe, which will be sufficient for me to balance this year's budget. Given the problems that we've had this year in realizing the full amount, in this year's budget, I became a little bit more conservative about what I would budget for next year. And for next year, I'm only budgeting $3 million. To the extent that we get more, then we can either replenish our fund balance, we can perhaps maybe pay some of the pension monies that we owe the treasurer, or just simply go back to council for a reappropriation of those funds if there's additional funds. So that's where we're at. We're working with the state. We should expect to receive the first payment, which is about $1 million very shortly. And over the next couple of months, but before November, we should have at least $8 million coming in. This problem was created basically years before I became mayor by simply not just providing the documentation that needed to be provided to the state to get the reimbursement. We've been coordinating with the Office of Policy, Office of Budget, OPM. We've been coordinating with the State Department of Education. We've had assistance from the Board of Ed, our Finance Department, and our goal is to continue to get as much money in because these are monies that we should have gotten and we're entitled to, and it also replenishes our cash to be able to continue to pay out for new projects.
Does that satisfy what you say,
Yeah, that's old stuff.
So is there anything new we need to know about this money and this bonding that you could share with us? That's what I want, yeah. Okay, yeah, come on, bust it down right quick.
Well, how much time do you have?
Look, we stay on time, we only at 6.
Okay, so
We're rolling here.
let's talk about the monies that's being proposed for Weaver High School. It's a 100.
Try to take 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so the money being proposed for Weaver High School is a $100 million project, which the state will be liable or will chip in $80 million of that, and the city will be responsible for for $20 million. The other project is the JMA, which is well, that's Weaver. That covers Weaver. That money is in the hoppers. We're moving through. We passed the budget. It's in there. We're all good for Weaver High School. Apparently, I mean that's for JMA. I think that's a concern that I think a lot of people are having, including myself. The fact that now it's going to be a magnet school. That presents a lot of issues and a lot of concerns because my conversations with the state, my conversation with Dr. Kishimoto, I haven't talked to the chef plaintiffs yet. The fact that it was going to be a traditional neighborhood school, and now at the last hour it becomes a magnet school, that benefits who? And that concerns me a lot, because although we save money, the city just saves money by converting it into a magnet school. The fact that is not a traditional school in this city, in this particular area of the city, troubles me, because now that school is not just open for the kids that live in North Hartford. It's open up for every kid in the greater Hartford area. And that was not the plan. That wasn't the plan. So I don't like that, and I have to have the conversation with the chef people, because I'm concerned about what direction this chef movement is moving in. On top of that, the issue in regards to pre-K education and kindergarten education is another major concern to me. I like the fact that we're going to provide opportunities for our children to have pre-K and kindergarten, but the problem with that is, again, half those seats are not opened up for the children who need it most, which are the children that live in Hartford. They're opened up for the children that live in the suburbs who do not get free education, pre-K and kindergarten. So they take the advantage, what they do, and I have friends of mine, legislative friends, and many of them, they're happy the fact, because in their communities do not provide pre-K education in kindergarten, but they can come to Hartford and get it for free, and after they get it for 2 years, they leave and take their children back out to the suburbs, and we're left holding the bag. And that's not the intent of the chef movement. It was for a quality integrated education, not a quality education for pre-K kindergarten, then you leave and Hartford left holding the bag. So I don't think that's the spirit of the chef. And that's a concern that a lot of people are having. It's free for people to come in. They take up half the slots. It's going to be a beautiful building built at the Science Center over at Moylan. Beautiful kids, but the children who need it most will not get that opportunity, and that's a problem. And that's a conversation that this community needs to have with the chef movement, because that's the wrong direction which it should be headed.
Thank you, State Representative Doug McCrory, because, you know, now I just thought of it, I guess our next meeting will be with the chef movement people. Regina, put that in the minutes, please. Okay, are we satisfied with the committee's questions so I can open up to the floors? All right? Make sure y'all writing your notes, because we're gonna follow up. First question. Will the students currently at Weaver and potential students at Weaver continue to play basketball for Weaver? Reason being, yesterday, Kenya Stewart, 2012, graduated, signed to play Division I basketball at UMass, and there are other students who could also be in the situation. I'm worried about their future, given how the programs have been chopped up and the funding has been cut. What will happen to those students who are already in transition to receive scholarships for athletics?
Not just the basketball program, but all sports will remain at Weaver. Even though journalism and media will be exiting the building, their athletics will be at Weaver. Journalism and media will not have an athletics program. So again, they will be a part of the Weaver High School athletic program. Also, I think that goes without saying, a lot of our students who go to CREC schools that do not have sports but reside in the North End also participate for Weaver High School athletics. That will continue as well. So we do have a plan to keep those programs in sync. We are not getting rid of those programs, the basketball program, football, baseball, softball, volleyball. Wrestling is a consolidated city program. All high schools wrestle under one, Hartford Public Schools. But we in no way, shape, or form deleting any sports or dismissing Weaver High School sports.
I'm gonna challenge you a little bit on that. I know a little bit about sports. I play basketball. The ranking of the divisions is my concern with Weaver High School. The more you pull, the more you shift, they don't qualify to play at certain divisions. And they have been decreasing, right? They don't have tennis, they don't have this, they have a pool that's for others, it's not for them. So they don't have certain programs as it stands today in place. And so you'll have a kid who can go to a D1 school, but now because of the ranking she finds herself at Western. Those are the challenges that I really want. I mean, I got so many calls from people who are in the athletic department, and that was the universal concern. And they said it's even insulting when you offer $5,000 and toot your horn for as if that's going to do something. I think this community really, it would benefit all of us if we really strategically thought about the athletics, because there seems to be a common theme about that, and trying to figure out in terms of the transition, how we're going to sustain those kids who are already being identified by recruiters from different schools. Okay, we already have problems, another team thing. We already have problems with students, field teams, where the fields, the Weaver fields, excuse me, some of the handwriting, where will the children play their sports and practice? Most of the students, most of the schools don't have gyms, and will transportation be provided for free?
Boy, keeping you busy, huh?
And one of the things, I do take the lead on that. We don't have a athletic director for the Hartford Public Schools per se, but it does come under the Office of School Design. What we have, again, we will be utilizing the facilities for the 2013-14 school year. So those will not shut down. We have been working with the city with respect to fields. That's been an ongoing conversation for well over a year now. But I just want to touch back to one point that you emphasized, Janice, if I may. Regardless of the size of your school, be it enrollment is 300 or 3,000, talented student athletes will always get noticed. And especially when you come to a school with a legacy such as Weaver, who's a charter member of the CCC. It's a brand. And when you have a brand, people will continue to know that brand. With respect to swimming and tennis and such, there is a tennis program at Weaver. And that's one of the requirements that the CCC put on to maintain their status with being a charter member. And swimming is tough. Swimming is going to be based on participation, but also if students are actively engaged in it. If you don't have a student body that is really engaged in swimming, I think it's difficult to make someone swim if that's something they don't really want to do. But access will be available. Access will always be available. Okay.
I just want to add one other piece that I want to make sure we continue to state, which is as we shut the facility down for construction at Weaver, there will be a schedule that will have to be put together in concert with the construction crew around who has access to the fields and to the field house at which time periods of the construction. So there will be time periods where areas will not be accessible because it's it's called a hard hat situation. You can't go in unless you are part of the construction crew. But we will continue to build out that schedule once we have the design of the building. We won't know that for a full year from now. So it's open for a year. We'll know a year from now the schedule for when different parts of the athletic facility are available because it's a safe situation to come in and out. So that'll be something that we'll have to continue to share with the community about that timeline and schedule.
Thank you. Cynthia Jennings, Councilwoman. I just wanted to say, and also school building committee member, I wanted to say something about reimbursement because Hartford taxpayers pay a huge amount of taxes. However, when we build a school, the standard reimbursement rate is 80%. So when a school is built, the state is supposed to pay us 80% of what it costs to build that school. Now, when it comes to why is Weaver, even though the enrollment is declining, why would we not build a smaller school? It's because you cannot be reimbursed anymore for field houses. You cannot be reimbursed for pools. You can't get that anymore. So that is why we have to keep Weaver intact. We have to keep Weaver as a school because every new school that you're looking at, you're not going to see field houses, you're not going to see pools unless the city has to pay it out of the taxpayers' dollars. Also for the chef schools like Kinsella, the reason the money was taken out and given to Kinsella is because Kinsella's possible reimbursement rate could go up to 95%. I'm sorry, 97%, which means the only thing Hartford taxpayers pay for building out that school is 3%. So 97% of that school can be reimbursed. So if we took it out of Weaver, which was not being built at the time, and put it into Kinsella because it's a chef school, it means that Hartford gets more money, much more money for its buck. And we are committed to not raising the taxes on our taxpayers and making sure that our children have a quality education.
Just in concert with what Councilwoman Jennings just shared, one of the things that was very important to everyone was that the auditorium and the field houses would not be cut back, knocked down, anything like that. And so the construction grant is actually going to focus on the academic spaces, so that whole middle area. And so what is our goal is to make sure that each of those classrooms are of a very nice size and have windows, which the classrooms currently do not. And so it's really about ensuring that every classroom has windows and that academic space looks like all of our best high schools here in the city with all the new construction grants. The auditorium will continue to exist, but it will be upgraded. It needs to be ADA compliant for handicap accessibility, and it'll be completely upgraded. So you'll see what is already a beautiful auditorium upgraded to the beauty of what it is. The field spaces also will remain.
I don't know how far you are into the conversation about Weaver, but give me 3 minutes, and then if I can keep going, it might be better. Okay, so this is what this community has to be worried itself about in regards to reimbursement. And this is what happened with JMA. Again, JMA was designed to be a traditional high school where you would have, the city of Hartford would have got reimbursed at an 80% rate. Now that is a magnet school, yes, the rate goes up to 97%, but it's not your school. It's a school that's shared with everyone else in the region. Understand me. Now, I've had conversations with people in Hartford. Now you're talking about Weaver. Are you prepared to have Weaver be a magnet school? I don't think that's the intent. Understand. When you build this school, you have to fill that school with students. Understand. And it's not the superintendent's fault, but the prior superintendent systematically destroyed Weaver High School at a time where it had the highest number of students graduating, because I was there. It had the highest attendance rate, okay? But it didn't have the highest number of students. So some school had to close. Weaver was targeted. Great programs that were there were removed. Great educators there were removed. Great administrators were removed. So now you have an opportunity to build a new Weaver High School, which we all want, and you know I'm a big proponent of it. But I'm not comfortable with Weaver High School being a magnet school. But understand, you have to have kids to fill that school. So I think something needs to be said tonight to guarantee this community that Weaver High School will not be a magnet school. Because again, you save money as a city, but you lose your identity. And trust me, there's a lot of people who graduated from Weaver High School that work at the State of K Avenue that don't look like me, that graduated from school, and they don't want that school to be a magnet school. So if you're talking about just saving money, yeah, you can save money, City of Hartford, but you lose your school to the greater community. And once you build a great institution like Weaver, and once you build a JMA which was designed, it's a great idea, which thought out very well, great partnerships, other people are gonna want that. And once you go magnet, you lose it.
So I guess this will be a challenge for the mayor's office and the superintendent, because what we see as the theme is that they want this to remain a neighborhood school. Is that what you guys saying? So I don't know how we continue that conversation. I guess they don't see saving money as the answer. You want to say something?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to answer how that happens, because it's beyond the leadership of this district, whether it's myself sitting in this seat or someone else sitting in this seat. What's important is that that as we continue to have not just the community forums like this where there's a Q&A opportunity, but when we're at the planning table, of which we're going to be rolling out a schedule this summer for a full year of planning that's going to happen around Weaver High School, and there'll be multiple input opportunities, that within that year of planning and even beyond that, it's up to the community to keep that pressure, that intent that what you want at the board meetings, at city council, at these forums. It's your voice that really drives this, and that's what I want to encourage you to continue to do, because it's really your voice that got us to where we are now with the designs and the ideas that have been put forth around pushing the Weaver project forward, but also not pushing so fast that it wasn't based on the desires of the community. So, I'm just going to encourage you to continue to keep voicing what you want in this building.
I'm glad you asked about them going to the board meetings, because here's one of those questions. Why was the meeting for making GMA a magnet school closed to the public, and why haven't there been any board meetings in North Hartford for the past 10 years? You've had meetings at Kinsella, you have meetings at the Science Center, University of Hartford. When will you be meeting to talk about any education issues in North Hartford?
I don't have the board meeting schedule, but it does rotate around the city, and I think it's set over a 2-year period to make sure that we're not changing, based on community input. I think it was 2 years ago now, there was some concerns about changing the board meeting every single meeting, and based on that input, it was switched to 3 meetings at each site, and then we switched. So it's then changed the dynamics of not being able to get to every school in 1 year, but it has provided more consistency for several meetings to accommodate each community. So we'll continue to have that kind of rotation throughout each of the schools in the city.
So you're gonna try to get to North Hartford, is what you're telling me? Because they said 10 years.
Yeah, no, it's based on a 2 years. It's based on a 2-year schedule, and I don't have that schedule in front of me, but I can pull up that schedule to see when we are at each site. That is correct. We were at Sands.
I just want her to, let her finish it.
I know, I just wanted to be clear that we've been at Sand, Mark Twain in the last few months.
Maybe they mean in North Hartford, this section of the, I don't know. I'm just reading the question. Okay?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
Read the question.
What is going to happen with the students who are graduating, specifically around their junior prom and senior prom? It seems to be all this conversation about redesign, and everyone forget that we need basic things. There is no funding for the proms, and will the superintendent try to do something to support the proms for the 12th grade class?
Those kind of school-based activities are driven by discussions and planning at the school-based level. So those are not centralized. My central office staff does not plan proms or those activities. The principal and the school governance council and the parent activities group at the school-based level are the ones that plan those. So if there are concerns about particular schools, like, I haven't heard anything. Certainly the people to go to are the leaders of the school building for those areas. The school governance council meetings are published, as well as the parent meetings.
Mm-hmm. And where could they find that information?
At the school level.
At the school level.
At the school level.
Okay.
Councilman Kyle Anderson, class of 1980, Weaver High School. Proud to say that everywhere and every place I go to. Just to talk about the class proms, I attended a meeting just past Tuesday. There are a bunch of parents and community leaders getting together to support the senior class of JMA, and also maybe doing a combination with the Culinary Arts Academy and see if we can help them raise their funds, have them put some skin in the game, and be involved in putting on a particular prom. So that's being looked at right now. It's been brought to my attention.
thought you did. Yes. Yeah. Yes, of course.
I just want to address the issue of the commitment to Weaver. And I'm glad for cameras because they record, right? And I don't know if there's a tape of a meeting that happened, I believe at Weaver. It's 2010. And I think, I don't know if I had just become mayor. And my commitment then was that Weaver represents a lot of things, especially to the community in terms of its institutional value, its value to community building. And at that time, what I suggested is that there needed to be an effort with the community partners to define what the future of Weaver would be in terms of the programs and the schools that were to be had there. And I was support from the funding end. And I think I've kept my promise in terms of, despite some people saying, oh, you can't put $100 million towards Weaver, you don't have the number. I put it in and it was approved. Having said that, it needs to continue to be an institution, and we cannot have an institution that we support, control, and decide its future if it's a magnet. So, as long as I'm mayor, as long as a court doesn't order me to do something, right, I will continue to support the concept of a Weaver that serves the role that its traditional has held, which is to be an institution within the community that is there as a resource for the community and the students, and is basically controlled by the city and through its Board of Ed and through its school and the community. I mean, that's my commitment, and I think that that's where a lot of my colleagues stand in terms of what I've heard from them on the council, and otherwise they wouldn't have taken the step of supporting my ordinance for $100 million. So I just want to be very clear on that so that no one goes home with any questions. Well, the mayor just stood there and didn't say anything. I'm being very clear. Thank you.
I hear you. You've got other questions. I'll be very quick. But I actually, I want to take off my elected official hat for a moment and just speak as Adam Cloud, who grew up in the Blue Hills section of town. And thank first the voices for holding this conversation, because I think one of the elephants in the room is that the reason why you all are here is because you think that there's a disconnect between what you want and what those who are responsible need to deliver. And I think that that needs to stop. That it happens through conversations like this, but as the superintendent suggested and the mayor just echoed, it's an ongoing conversation that requires all of our commitment to keep our institutions like Weaver, to make sure that our children get a great education, not a good education, a great education, that they can excel in academics as well in sports, and have something that we all can be proud of, because Weaver is that. And for it to continue to be what it is, an institution, we on this side of the table need to be in concert with those listening to our voices tonight, because if we're not going to do that, then we really have missed the point of this meeting tonight. So I just want to make sure.